heritage from the Lord, offspring a reward from Him. This suggests children are a precious gift from God to be valued and cared for.
In the United States, a child a minute is taken into DHS, CPS, and so on custody. The reality is their picks are already selected, you just don't know it. Perfect no longer matters. It's what the adopting families are looking for.
Who is it stealing the children, you ask?
From caseworker to the White House, the buck stops at all levels, just not where it is supposed to be. The services your family needs, we the people have paid for to ensure your reunification. Title IV says, reunify at all costs. United, we stand means nothing to us when it comes to family values. Children are being ripped away from their families. Parents are reverting to addictive behaviors to cover the pain. The trauma caused by child removal is being recognized, and the results are termination of parental rights is not healthy for anyone, just profitable for the people and for life.
It's time Washington listens to the cries of our children, the wails of their mothers, and the rage growing in the fathers. These are our children. Keep your damn hands off them. We are coming to act on the behalf of the children God gave us to protect, and you kidnapped.
In the United States, CPS makes upwards of $3 billion per day on trafficking and selling our children. Caseworker, but goes through the judicial system, past the Senate, and into the White House. The entire system has a hand in the business known as CPS.
Our children are every minute of a 24-hour day. They are being robbed of their innocence, their trust, their happiness. As parents, we are isolated and betrayed by a government we trust. States are balancing budgets on kids' lives. Only 12% of the kids taken will be reunified. Title IV, funding the fraud.
All right, everybody, welcome to this Tuesday night CPS Victims Hunting for Justice. I'm your host, the CPS Punisher, and we have a... I'm telling you, what's exciting is seeing more and more faces come into this fight. Because, you know, those for us have been here for a while. You know, we've been pounding the same messages over and over, and it seems like we're not getting anywhere, but in reality, we are. And what's even more rejuvenating, faces in here. So I'm just going to let this one rip, guys. We got Charles Lincoln with us tonight, our constitutional law guy. Charles, how are we doing tonight? Let me get you.
Excellent. I wanted everybody to know that everybody needs to go see Civil War because we're headed for one.
Yeah, you know what? Faster than anybody thinks.
Say again?
I said faster than anybody thinks, man. The Civil War, we've been on the verge for quite some time.
Well, it's just interesting to see Hollywood recognizing that and putting it out on a major release with a major star like Kirsten Dunst. So,
Here's a question. Is that where they want us to go? That's the question.
It's, I think, I don't know. I mean, I think that actually this movie is designed to try to prevent people from arming, because it's interesting because it's totally non-ideological. There are the sides are completely fictitious. For example, I can't think of any two states in the Union that are more opposed to each other right now than Texas and California. But in this movie, you have a Texas-California alliance, which is just two big states. And so basically what it does is it focuses on the pain of war, the irrationality of violence. All that stuff is fine, but it doesn't take sides. It doesn't really say anything about right or wrong, except that if we get into a civil war, it's going to be bloody and it's going to be painful, and so I'd say it's basically an anti-war movie, but trying to discourage people from getting into it. But what's interesting is that it's now almost a given. I mean, did you see V for Vendetta close to 20 years ago? 19 years ago with Natalie Portman?
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Of course.
Do you remember do you remember what was going on? That was set in England, obviously. Do you remember what was going on in America?
Right. Well,
there was a civil war in America.
Charles, I was back then. I don't. What's going on? Let's see if that's 20 years, 30 years, wasn't it? More V.
No, it was for the 400th anniversary of Guy Fawkes Day in England. So it was 2005. Original Guy Fawkes Day was 1605. And no, America was split by a violent, ongoing. The suggestion was something like 20-year civil war, and that was predicted in 2005. And then ever since then, there's more and more suggestion that Hollywood recognizes that basically the glue that formerly held this country together is gone. Nobody believes in nobody believes that there's identity between the American dream and American government anymore.
No, about that. The American, my friend, there's no more. Excuse me for a second. I gotta shut. We're all here. That's all. That's important. The American dream. Oh my God. The American dream has been gone for long ago. When the picket fence was left behind, dissipated as soon as 1996 started on the children going to be adopted. That's when we lost our dream, because the family at that point was just been families apart. Then there ends the American dream. Hey, I'm going to bring out Melissa with us right now, and I'll bring out Herbert. Brenda with us. Guys, how we doing? We got a great guest that's waiting back there for us right now. I'll make last minute. But Melissa, do you want to give us a little bit of about Chris?
Well, I mean, from what I've seen, from what I've watched on his videos and stuff, he advocates for the little person, and I do agree with him that we all need to stand up and fight, and that we ain't going to get very far in our little district courts, and I agree with him with taking the fight to a bigger plane.
Yeah, that should be all about. Brenda, Chris, have you heard about
Well, yeah, I've been messaging him on Facebook for a while because I don't know, it just because he was in Florida, so I always make sure I connect with anybody that's in Florida and him, and there's several other kids several other parents fighting for their kids, over in that area. And I think he's just doing a great job. I just like, and the first time I watched his, he was actually singing a song. I picked the song, I shared it because I'm like, this guy he's awesome. I don't know what else to say.
Right. That's awesome. No, exciting to have, going through it, and then they have enough energy and strength to this fight and actually expose themselves like this. Exposing CPS and what everybody, it's not so much us getting together. What we're talking about that runs rogue, that funds all that, amazing. I mean, I'm a true believer that our entire country, as far as state budgets and everything go. I mean, the state budgets boxing and they work out with what CPS does. It's and the amount of kids that have been taken, and you look at your state, you'll notice that incline also shows an increase of adoptions. Too much, coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences, but it just seems funny that each state just this money, but yet there's more and more kids taken into custody. Let me bring Chris out here. Let me. You got him there. There we go.
And there is a reason for that. There is a reason for that. Man, just keeping the fight strong. So,
Chris, where are you located in Florida? I'm just curious.
Well, actually, I fled the state of Florida. I'm no longer there. I am currently, there's a writ of bodily attachment against me for the ransom of $4,000 or 6 months in jail for not paying child support. That's above and beyond what I could ever possibly pay. And that was calculated fraudulently, and through the theft of my children and the complete denial of any contact with them, fraudulent records that were entered into the court that falsely purported my income as being higher and my ex's income as being higher or lower in different cases for the purposes of creating a child support debt that was above and beyond anything I ever could possibly pay. And they do these things because they're in the business of trafficking human beings. They know they have a scheme. It's a scheme that's been working for years. They have a targeted population, and once you become one of those marked targeted people, they come after you for your whole life. And that's what happened to me. As a child, I was living, initially, obviously, it was with my mom, who was a very abusive and narcissistic individual. And I was tortured and abused throughout my childhood by her and her future spouse later on also, until I was finally put into foster care, not for abuse, but for neglect or for abandonment. So it took, even though I was constantly making reports of the torture that I was being subjected to, and that was getting me absolutely nowhere. DCF was not intervening. My family didn't believe me, and then it wasn't until she abandoned me that I went into foster care, and that's when I got to see what foster care was all about. And foster care is a place where they extort children. I mean, they exploit children for medical science, sometimes for sex, sometimes for but it's all for federal funding, and they try to maximize the amount of money that they can get. So,
hey Chris, hold on. I'm sorry I was interrupting you there, but did you say that you were calling help for yourself?
Yes.
To get help?
Yes, trying to get help. Yes.
So you were lesson and trying to get help in your situation, and they weren't coming to your rescue.
No, they would not.
Oh my God.
So it wasn't until I was abandoned that I went into foster care.
Hey Darren, don't you remember me? Darren, don't
did
you
they
remember
not
me
see it?
telling you?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you. You were both talking at the same time.
How did the state react to you making the complaints?
Well, they did their investigations, and they saw bruises on me. They investigated the household. But what would happen, and this was the scheme that my mom had. So I was a Munchausen by proxy. It's now called fictitious disorder imposed on another. But what she was trying to do from a young age was try to tell everyone and create falsified evidence to prove that I was mentally ill, so that she could get a federal check, a Social Security check for me. She was trying to get a check. And so she would, she did all sorts of, terrible things. And then for the purposes, and then record me. She'd grab her camcorder and she'd record my reaction after she did, terrible things, and try to use that as evidence that she had a mentally ill son, so she could just get a Social Security check. When what really happened is she had a, highest intelligence, in the possible child, and instead of nurturing that, she was trying to exploit me, and it's disgusting. But anyway, so when they finally did intervene, it wasn't until I was abandoned, and the circumstances behind that abandonment are absolutely appalling. But basically, I was arrested for battery on my stepfather by the police officers, who didn't ask me a single question whatsoever, and just came into my bedroom to find me tied up with zip ties and covered in bruises with my hair falling out. Didn't ask me a word, put me in handcuffs and put me in the back of their car. Was driving me down to the jail, and I was like, look at me, I'm beat up. I've got bruises and from all different colors. I was like, this is, I've got lumps on my head, and this cop tells me, if you were my kid, I'd beat your ass even worse. So, these children don't have any rights. Nobody ever asks them what's going on with them. They just ask the parents, and whatever the parents say goes, unless it's a state agency that's choosing to intervene. And, and that's when it's, somebody else's word. But what word is never heard is the child's. And that was the case in my situation. And so I got to the Juvenile Assessment Center at the Juvenile Detention Center, and that's where they assess you before taking you in and booking you. And when I was assessed, I'm just standing there like this, just like clumps of hair falling out of my head. I'm like showing this person, I'm like, I got bruises, these are old bruises, these are new bruises. I was like, feel this, there's a giant lump on my head here and another one here. And I'm like, I didn't do this to myself. I've been being abused and tortured for years, but nobody listens to me. And so that person that day finally listened to me, and they put me in a separate area instead of putting me in the jail. And they called a place called Daniel Memorial, it was the Youth Crisis Center, who was a safe place location, and they picked me up and brought me to that safe place. After the minimum amount of time, which is like 24 or 48 hours, they put me on release status. My mom refused to come pick me up, and that's when DCF took control after 2 weeks of her refusing to pick me up, and then my dad refusing also, and then my mom blocking them from allowing any other family members, because she still had parental rights. She blocked any family members who wanted to take me from being able to take me out of what was going to be, and what it inevitably was, a very traumatic foster care experience in over 30 foster homes. So but what they did is, later on in my life, once I had a child and I was in divorce court, they used my foster care history and the verified abuse that I went through as a child. They used that against me to try and say that my children should not have any contact with me because I was verified abused. And and that's absolutely disgusting, because what I did when I got out of foster care, because of the injustices that I endured, I at 16 years old, I was a nonprofit executive. I was voted onto the board of directors for the Community Partnership for the Protection of Children in Jacksonville, Florida. And they trained me in parliamentary procedure and starting and managing nonprofit businesses in leadership, mentorship, and started me on a career where I was a national public speaker advocating for child rights between the ages of 16 and 19. and then I became a dad. And but at 18 years old, I started being targeted by police, and I was pulled over and harassed and constantly searched, without any probable cause or reason or rhyme, over and over and over again. I had jump out boys pull up to me while I was standing at the bus stop. I mean, these people were harassing the absolute shit out of me throughout my childhood, and it ruined my advocacy career. And it also led to me being white capped out of the town that I was living in by corrupt police officers who showed up at an apartment complex while I was signing a lease. And after I left, I got a call from the office that said that those officers showed them something on their computer that didn't show up in my background check, and now I can't live there and I need to pick up my check, which left me homeless as a teenager and living in my car at a rest stop. And I moved to a new town, and within a couple of weeks, the same thing started happening. I was being constantly harassed. And that ultimately led up to an incident in April of 2019 where I was, the falsified evidence was used to arrest me for child neglect and for resisting arrest without violence and for, what was it? Child neglect and resisting arrest without violence. They charged me with 4 counts of child neglect, which was absolute bullshit because I've never neglected my children in my entire life. They were very well taken care of. We were at their private school, and these officers kidnapped my son, held him hostage, refused to allow me to check on him, and then threatened me in front of my other children who were all screaming in the car while they were attacking it. They falsified a story that they posted on Facebook, and then the Associated Press picked up the story. The Associated Press it made it to Yahoo Lifestyle, then to the London Metro News, then to Australian Honey, and people were talking shit about me all over the United States of America, calling me a bad man and a bad father, and I have not seen my babies since that day. So I spent 2 years in prison.
I feel your pain with that.
Got railroaded, in the courts. Spent 2 years in prison, knowing that I was an innocent man. And instead of fighting for myself, I was fighting corrupt family courts for my babies. And the issue that I was having with these courts is that the judge is the family court. The attorney, my ex-wife's attorney, is the family court judge's cousin by marriage, and I believe there's plenty of reason to believe that he was taking bribes, because this woman had literally paraded around in a courtroom in black leather using profanity. Meanwhile, myself and my attorneys are being told shut up or being held in contempt for trying to object or rebut to anything that she says. And it was all slander. So, that said, I obviously, I've been able to see how corrupt this judiciary is from all standards. I've been able to see how corrupt the Department of Children and Families is and how that system works. But then I started unraveling things and trying to dig deeper into it. And I started trying to trace the money down and see who's getting paid and why. And I've been able to find out, one specific agency within the United States government that profits off of all of this. And that agency is Health and Human Services. They get paid off. They're the ones who do the child support and the child support enforcement, and they're the ones who do the foster care. And they have quotas. These states have quotas on how many kids they need to take so that they can meet a certain level and continue to receive the amount of funding that they request. Because what happens is they request a certain amount of money, and then they have to meet the quota so they can meet that request. And that's how this is happening, because they ask for their money in advance, and they have to meet that quota. I mean, and these are things that we can find and verify, but this is absolute disgusting truth. So, and then, besides that, a lot of these judges, all right, their retirements, and this isn't in all states and all counties, but in a lot of these places, their judge's retirement is based off of the amount of money they can get off a Title 4D.
Yeah.
So they have a financial vested interest in denying a parent 50-50 custody or deleting a child's parent from their life, which is, sometimes even easier, because all it takes is some false allegations and absolutely no evidence to delete a parent, because the courts are corrupt. We don't have due process in these courts. They exceed their jurisdiction every time we walk in the door. I've struggled to get exculpatory evidence into the record and proof that these child support amounts are fraudulent, and I've proven that I am a fit parent by doing the one requirement that they asked me to do, which is a parental fitness evaluation. I paid the $1,200 it was for the evaluation, and it came back positive. It said that the doctor recommended unsupervised time. But yet my babies still haven't seen me face to face. They still haven't talked to me, and I did that evaluation over a year ago. So the courts it's disgusting. What they're doing. They're profiting off of the suffering of families, the destruction of families, and really they've been doing this for decades. And you take it the step further, and you can see how the family courts and the criminal courts are connected. The prison system is filled with children who were denied one or both parents in their lives. And if you look at the statistics for the prison, 80% of prisoners came from broken homes. So if they destroy the family, then they can destroy that child for life. And, so it's a whole scheme of slavery. And the slavery has been ongoing, obviously, for a very long time. But when you look at Amendment 13, you see that slavery was never abolished. So slavery is punishment for a crime. And so it all interconnects, because now you can create more punishments for more crimes, because now you have children who don't have any guidance or support that you can exploit. It's just a spiraling cycle of generational destruction on the family unit. It's war waged against us. It's genocide on the family. But it's happening worldwide. It's not just happening in your state. It's not just happening to you. It's happening all over the United States, all over Canada. It's happening in Japan. I talk to parents all over the world who are dealing with this. All over the world. People in Germany, people are fed up. Worldwide, it's disgusting. These courts are just it's individual people. So we can trace it all down to these deprivations of rights under color of law. The Democratic Republican Party has enacted all of these statutes, codes, and ordinances that monetize our rights, our exercise of our rights. They monetize that, which is unconstitutional, but it's what they do, and it's against the law, but it's what they do. Our codes, ordinance, and statutes are not the law, and the Supreme Court has already held that. The law of the land is the Constitution of the United States Code, secondary, and we have, some other federal regulations, but these statutes, codes, and ordinances enacted by cities, counties, and states are not the law. And, any of those that violate a constitutional right is a violation of the law. And it's the people who have written the laws. Those are bar association members. And I learned that when I was doing child rights advocacy, because I worked with a lobbyist and an attorney. And it was the attorney who wrote the law, and it was the lobbyist who tried to push these people to listen to me talk so that I could advocate for these laws to go into effect. But it's the attorneys, it's the bar association who actually writes these laws that are subversive to the Constitution. And these people are law scholars. These are law professionals. So they know they're violating the law when they do it. But there is a scheme within the bar associations at all to maximize profits by exploiting as many people as possible in as many ways as possible. And it's not the bar association creates writes the laws. The members of the Democratic Republican Party, and I say that because historically they were the Democratic Republican Party. If you look at the history of either of those parties, you see that they both connect, and they used to be called the Democratic Republican Party. They are still one party, and they've been working together to deceive the people and violate our rights for profit. And really what it's come down to now is, since the gold standard was abolished, and all of our money is based off of debt, it is all slavery. So there is no true wealth. Every dollar is based off of debt. It's all borrowed money, and it's all borrowed with interest. So, we're not like everything is going to crumble here soon. It has to, because these criminals who have been profiting off of this deprivation of rights, and who have been enacting all of these subordinate statutes and who have been enforcing them, they're all pansies to the corporations. And that's really what it comes down to. These people are pansies to the corporations and to the Fed. And the Fed is run by the bankers, and all these judges are anymore is just bankers. Lawyers, judges, they're bankers. They're trying to find the most profitable scheme to profit off the situation, and what can we get away with today? And that's really what we're dealing with right now. There are no courts of law. There is no justice. The blue wall of silence is the secret code amongst officers that they will not rat on each other when somebody, one of their people, and that includes the Democratic Republican Party, and that includes the Bar Association members, which includes the judges and attorneys. The blue wall of silence protects all of them from prosecution and from arrest. It's why the FBI will not listen to our cries. That's why the DOJ says that they'll do things, but they don't. And we are going to the federal courts, and we are getting some remedy in federal courts. I'm seeing that, and at least getting some exposure because of federal courts, which is wonderful. But but we're still dealing with the Bar Association, and the only way that we're ever going to get any justice when the Bar Association is corrupt is to have self-prosecution. And we're going to have self-prosecution, and we're going to have to, and obviously with the law enforcement being the way it is and the blue wall of silence, we have to abolish immunity. It's immunity that's the criminal. Our Constitution says that titles of nobility aren't going to fly here. We don't have titles of nobility here. Every man is equal, and every man is supposed to be punished for their crimes if they commit a crime. There is no immune person. There are no nobles. The king can the king can do no wrong. There is nobody like that in this country based off of our Constitution. But and so we have to battle immunity so that these people who are violating our rights for profit are arrested for their crimes and removed from their positions of power, because that's what we're lacking. We're lacking any enforcement of our rights. There's not a single government agency that enforces the rights of the people. Not one single agency enforces the rights of the people. They are all after us, but none of them are for us. And you see that when you start going to look for help. Even the United Nations has given notice to the United States that there is no remedy for people who are dealing with these situations that we're dealing with. But yet, even though the United Nations has given notice to the United States, do you think anything's changed? Hell no. Of course it hasn't changed, because these people are getting rich off of our suffering. They are buying up the most beautiful big houses and stacking wealth for their children off of the suffering of ours. And that's the truth of it all, and we have to stop it. The only way that we're going to stop it is if we band together and we work together and we fight together, to stop these things. And we can do that without raising a single weapon. We can. And the only way to do that is to crash the financial system. And if you wanna disrupt them, you have to fuck with their money, because that's all they're about anyway. You have to disrupt the financial system. And so in order for us to be able to do that, we have to go on a massive strike, and we have to spread the awareness of these situations and the injustices. And we have to all go ahead and go on this massive strike where we pull all our cash out and we don't contribute any money to the corporations. If it's a corporation, fuck you. And I don't care who it is. What corporation, no bank touches our funds. And, the money is worthless anyway. So, we go COVID, how COVID was, and everybody is in their houses, and they're all staying home and nobody's going to work. Well, we do the same thing, but instead of being in our houses, we're outside in the streets protesting. We're telling our stories with a megaphone in our neighborhood, or out in a public square, or at a courthouse, or at a police station, or at the Bar Association membership, or at a Capitol building, any public place. And we don't even have to have large groups to do it. But if we're doing it like everywhere, and hitting them with more and more people, and drawing more and more awareness, and everybody live streaming what they're doing. And so we can gain more and more popularity in the movement. And, you know, if we spread this properly and get enough people on board who are out protesting instead of being working and slaving so they can pay these outrageous taxes for the fact that they've been denied their children, you know, and contributing to a system that is literally enslaving them and stealing babies and hurting them for profit, you know, like step out of the system and fucking fight back.
Hold up. We've all been doing things and we're all telling our stories. This has been going on for years. And the problem lies, and I appreciate your opinion on everything. The problem lies in that don't know about this stuff. That's where it lies. Like, you get the mom and dad that are going into the hospital that don't even know about CPS. That all of a sudden they're getting into the hospital. Whoa, what was yesterday? You need to educate. Is the protests and all of that stuff being allowed and all that. Sure, that's great. And bringing the education to the people who don't believe it's ever going to happen to them. And secondly, bringing it to are thinking that this is just a farce. We're making this up. We're just Yahoo tinfoil hat wearers. You know, that's what we're missing.
I think you may be underestimating the amount of people who are going through this.
We have a voting regimen that comparison to anything else. Child the minute being taken into custody, and more than that, that's damn near 100 million votes that have been CPS, the 6 degrees of separation. I'm talking directly, like mom and dad. It's probably rallied those. Just those people alone, you're absolutely coming out to those. Why aren't they coming out and saying anything? Because the system has destroyed them. They've put them into an isolation. They've made them feel like they're completely obsolete to society. Not to mention just the trauma and the depression and all the other stuff. Just take your kid. Forget about the stigma and the fact alone that you're devastated. You can't want to make anybody feel any passed away. I'm not trying to make this comparison. I've never lost a child directly that I know this, but it's damn hard losing a child to CPS, knowing that your child is still wondering where you are, wondering what's going on, all of this stuff. It's like you get to put this to bed. Your child has a grave they have earned, and you can relish with the memories and everything. They're great. They're
Hell,
wonderful.
you could go visit them anytime.
You're absolutely right.
Right. So I agree with one in the big system scenario, absolutely. But I've been
right. But families are afraid to speak out.
Right. Man, keeping it simple. You know, that's the rule we've got to get back.
Well, it's working exactly the way it was intended to.
Yeah, badly.
They're stealing more and more kids.
Yeah, exactly. It's their intention. They're slavers.
It's just what they made it.
So if you look at the history of slavery, it all ties into slavery. That's what this is. We don't have rights. We're slaves. We're slaves to money, and we're slaves to the will of these people who have immunity. So, right. What it is, we have to abolish slavery. We have to end the slavery. We have to, end if we end slavery, we end it all. So, it's
Charles, what's your thinking on this? Where do you go with this, Charles? This loaded topic, but my friend.
Well, Christabel has been going on for a while, and there's so many things that we need to talk about. But it's a good thing that I mentioned the movie Civil War at the beginning, because basically none of this can be done through the court or even through the ballot box, most likely. He's talking about, and I have been saying for years, a revolution. Now, there's so many different things that he said that I'd like to elaborate on. He talked about a nationwide strike of non-cooperation in the financial field. I proposed that 15 years ago, when the mortgage when the first wave of mortgage foreclosures was going through. I said everybody should stop paying. Everybody should stop paying. They can't foreclose everybody. They don't have the personnel to foreclose everybody. If everybody would just stop paying these phony notes that they were sold fraudulently, because as he says, they're based on nothing. Actually, they're based on the concept of credit. I'm sure that some of you have looked at your dollar bills, and what does it say? Your dollar bill is. It says it's a note. A note is exactly like what you sign when you sign a credit card or a debit card. It's a promise to pay. And your dollar bills, you're basically promising to pay Peter with Paul. Borrow Peter, money Peter. The economic system is a house of cards, but it is the basis for the government. So when you're talking about a strike, a nationwide strike, a strike of the people, you're talking about revolution. And okay, I mean, again, 20 years ago, Greg Abbott, current governor of Texas, labeled me the most dangerous paper terrorist in North America. I have the feeling that Chris is on his way he's probably already on a bunch of lists from what he's saying.
That's what we were talking about earlier.
He is an enemy of the state, classified for all public purposes as an enemy of the people, even though he's fighting for the people. But as far as awareness goes, most people don't know, and so they will agree with the government that he and I and Brenda and Darren are all enemies of the people. Now, another thing he mentioned that, of course, I'm very personally involved in is he mentioned the bar. I have the absolute highest possible credentials, the most elite background you can have as a lawyer. I have degrees from Harvard and the University of Chicago. There are no better law schools in the United States than those two. I was admitted to the bar in Texas, Florida, and California, and half the federal courts in the United States. And yet I am now disbarred and under an injunction in the state of Texas from filing anything, even pro se, because I tried to take the Texas family court down. Now, I have mentioned this before, but I'm going to mention it again because I'm afraid we have to repeat this. He's talking about the bar. The bar in each state is indeed one of our key enemies. We all
disconnected.
We have all depended on. Are we being? Is the NSA stopping us or something?
Yeah. They're trying to.
No, just Darren with a technical difficulty.
Okay, well, the bar is a technical difficulty of the highest order, because the bar has control of the third branch, the official third branch of government, and it has total control of the third branch of government, and it has effective control of the first and second branches of government. The entire government is, in fact, under the control of the bar, which is a thought control institution. It tells people what they can say as lawyers, what they can't say as lawyers. That's why Greg Abbott thought I was such a dangerous paper terrorist. I kept saying what I believed about the Constitution. And there is one, it's upsetting that we don't have anybody from the Western United States so far on this show. And I'm going to try to bring in
Well,
people.
I'm in the Western United States now.
Well, okay, are you by any chance near Montana?
Some hours away, but I travel.
Go to Montana and support Jerry O'Neill for Supreme Court of Montana. Jerry O'Neill is is um, uh, he's a four-term state senator in Montana who is running for the Supreme Court. He has never been to law school. He has never been a member of any state bar, and he has dedicated his life to fighting the state bar monopoly system. And he is on the ballot for June 4th in Montana, and everybody needs to support him, because if one outsider who believes in the Constitution, you mentioned gold and silver, he demanded, when he was a member of the state legislature, every term he demanded to be paid in gold and silver because it was the only legal currency.
It is.
Only thing the states are authorized to pay debts in. So if they actually owe a debt to their legislators, they should pay it in gold and silver. I think Jerry O'Neill is probably the only person who has ever made that demand in our lifetime. So it's of paramount importance to realize that there is one person out there. He's never, I mean, unlike me, he's never been targeted, never been criminally prosecuted, never been disbarred because he was never a member of the bar. He's going to be 81 on May the 10th. God bless him, but he's in better physical shape than I am. And this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity for the people of Montana to start through the ballot box a form of revolution. It's I don't know what they will do. Maybe they won't count the votes, which seems to be the technique nationwide these days. But if they do count the votes, I think that there's an excellent chance that Montana could have a non-state bar justice sitting on the Supreme Court. And if he is elected, I will certainly support him in every way I possibly can. My education is only worth anything to the degree that I use it to fight the system. And basically, what you say about the 13th Amendment is absolutely true. The 13th Amendment in the Civil War did not abolish slavery. What they abolished was private chattel slavery, and they turned it over to state government slavery. And okay, I know I sound like a broken record when I keep saying this, but it all goes back to the Communist Manifesto of February 1848. Abraham Lincoln and Karl Marx were very close pen pals. They never met, but Marx supported Lincoln 100%. And another aspect of my cousin's government in the 1860s is it was supported by thousands, tens of thousands of German communists who left Germany after 1848 and came to the United States and formed the Republican Party. Now, you're a little bit off on what you're saying about the Democratic Republican Party. The Democratic Republican Party was the party of Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, James Monroe, and it was Andrew Jackson who really changed the name from Democratic Republican to the Democratic Party. And the Republican Party of today is the descendant of the Whigs. And the Whigs, in turn, were the descendants of the Federalists. And the Federalists were the party of the bankers. Alexander Hamilton, the first Secretary of the Treasury of the United States, also was the founder of the Bank of New York. Any of you who've been involved in foreclosures out there, your note may have had the bank, the fingers of the fingerprints of the Bank of New York on it somewhere. That is Alexander Hamilton's bank. That is the Federalist Bank. That is the bank basically another insight I have into all this is that Wall Street was created largely to support the Bank of New York and the Federalist Party. Wall Street needed a law firm. And as it happens, my first non-governmental job when I graduated law school was with the very first, the oldest Wall Street firm, Cadwalader, Wickersham and Taft, which is the firm that wrote the key memoranda on how to design the modern mortgage system in the 1990s. And so, I mean, I have seen all of this, and all I can say is I pray that people will contribute to Jerry O'Neill's campaign. You know, that he will somehow become elected, because he's the only person I know nationwide who is really trying to break that bar monopoly that you're talking about, and that is in both the family slavery system and the mortgage slavery system, the credit slavery system. When you go back to the history of civilization, you'll find out that the earliest forms of slavery were debt slavery. That was how people in ancient Iraq and Syria, Mesopotamia, how the most common form of slavery was through credit, through debt. That is how one group of people reduces others to slavery. Anyhow, you had your
I'm living it.
and there's a lot we've got to talk about, obviously. And I'm glad you're out west.
Might be running over a little bit tonight. And some pens and papers. I think we might be going a couple minutes over tonight, no doubt. You want to add to this?
Well,
continue with ripping the way we're ripping it.
Well, to second what Charles was saying about voting someone in somewhere to where we have a non-bar in a court, I think that will open up for a lot of very, very intelligent non-bar people to start petitioning and fighting and doing what they have to get themselves in line in other states. So that hopefully, right. I mean, it probably won't happen all within our lifetime, but hopefully the people can start taking back the court and start taking back the system step by step.
I just want to interrupt you for a second here. I apologize, but I would say if we don't do it during our time, it probably can never happen, because we are the last that is going to have the freedom and the ability to use the internet at all to advocate these positions. I commented that I attended the University of Chicago Law School in addition to Harvard. And one of my professors at the University of Chicago was Cass Sunstein. Cass Sunstein is now at Harvard, and he is one of the foremost advocates of using the internet to suppress to suppress freedom of speech. The Clintons started this, and Cass Sunstein is a so-called constitutional lawyer who is working his best to suppress the internet, because the internet is in fact the key to everything right now. We are only able to have this conversation because of the internet. My good friend Sam Dixon in Atlanta comments on how in the 1960s and 70s, people who understood what was going on basically had to write each other letters, and there was no easy way to get the word out about what was going on. We have opportunities like this where the 4 or 5, 6 of us scattered from New York to somewhere out west, down to Louisiana and up to Maine. We can all talk to each other and we can spread the word. But if we don't achieve this in our lifetime, I hate to sound Jungian or mythological or something, but I think we're basically facing many millennia of slavery. and there will be no escape, because the powers that be used COVID, among other things, as a test run to see if they could govern the entire world, and it was successful. The trial run worked. That I still have friends who are Maya Indians in Mexico who live in thatched huts without without modern conveniences on the whole, but they do have telephones and televisions, and they were all required to wear masks in the middle of the tropical rainforest. And they were required to get vaccinated. And when you look at the fact that it was that even relatively primitive people were coerced into this world government system, that is very indicative of how close we are to world government. That reminds me of another thing I'd comment. I don't know how many of you know who Gina Crenshaw was. Gina Crenshaw was a friend of mine and a great constitutional advocate. But she and I parted company on one issue. She wanted to get the United Nations. She was responsible in part for that finding that you were talking about, that the United Nations found that there was no remedy for judicial oppression in the United States. But I guarantee you, we don't want the United Nations taking over us. We don't want, people from Iran and Afghanistan under the Taliban and basically dictatorships all over the world telling us how to reform our system. We don't want to end up with Sharia law.
Well, we've been, what we need is actually, these issues are happening worldwide. This isn't just happening here. This isn't just the United States. It's happening all over the world. And that's why, worldwide we have to stand up. Worldwide we have to strike back, because these bankers infiltrated all over the world, and the Bar Association has infiltrated all over the world. And that's really, that's where the crime's happening from. It's between the bankers and the Bar Association. They're working together because they're all getting rich. And the medical industry, they're on it, they're on it too. It's not just the states. These are people profiting off of the suffering of people worldwide. And, our money system, they stole all of our money. They stole all the gold back in 1933. 1933, the United States robbed all of the people under threat of arrest and stole all of their gold and gave them in exchange, some pieces of paper that have no value other than pieces of paper with some fancy print on it. And created a system of debt that enslaves every single person who's a member of it. Unless you have enough of those dollars to buy your freedom, but it's crazy how these people who have all these dollars just sit on all these dollars and don't do anything with these dollars, and yet there's other people who have no dollars and they're suffering and dying. And so obviously this system of inequity needs to be changed, abolished. Obviously, when children and adults are killing themselves on a daily basis because they've been separated from each other, without any cause or reason. A lot of the times these kids don't even know. They have no idea the reasons why they were taken. I've met so many kids being in foster care who had no idea why they were in foster care. And they get groomed into not wanting to go back to their parents. It's really sad, the whole system. So
again, the agenda is to abolish.
What is it they're told? This is a question we've never. And I'm only curious. So, I've been TPR'd and situation that I'm dealing with, and I know a lot of the people. What is it to you as a foster child from the people pushing you away from your parents? What is it that the let's go where situation we just vanished all of a sudden? She's 3 years old. What is it that they're telling these people?
You know, I wish I could answer that question. You know, in my case, it was the opposite. You know, I really did not need to be there. Mind you, foster care was no better than the situation I was in before, but, you know, at least, I don't know, in foster care, I would find some times where I didn't feel like my life was in jeopardy, whereas, you know, it was the opposite at home. But, you know, I, I know that I've met many children who had no idea why they were in foster care and what it is that happened. But what they do is they drug these kids into submission, and put them in a whirlwind swirl of not being able to comprehend the things that are happening around them. And you know, that's a big part of it right there. You know, the medical abuse. They're forcefully drugging these kids so that they can delete these memories of their childhood, and so that they can, you know, and get them to submit and to the things that they're dealing with, the things that they're being subjected to, the abuse that they're enduring. They couldn't put me on enough medication. I was on like 12 pills by the time I finally got off, and it wasn't until I was 15 that I finally had a foster parent who treated me like a person instead of a paycheck. And he allowed me to come off of the medication that I'd been on since I was 7 years old. You know, 8 years of drugging. And when I got off of the medication, I went through 6 months of withdrawals. But when I went back to a doctor after 6 months, the doctor said, "I'm sorry, there's nothing wrong with you." So 8 years of my childhood drugged, and you know, the end of it was, "I'm sorry, there's nothing wrong with you." But the state was making shitloads of money off of, you know, the Social Security checks for me, because they had a child who they deemed disabled, and that they were drugging for mental illness. And you know, that's their way of making money, and it's also their way of creating submission. So it's a double whammy. And then these kids, you know, having been drugged their whole childhood and having been exploited and sold for sex and forced labor, because I was forced labor. I wasn't forced into sex, but there were plenty of weirdos. There's, you know, one of my foster parents ended up being caught having a camera in the bathroom, and I distinctly remember a conversation where he had told me that if I was going to masturbate, to do it in the bathroom. So, you know, these sort of things are, you know, happening. I was in a home where there was a 21-year-old that was in care who was disabled, and he was low functioning. And this foster parent, you know, this is a kid who wore a helmet. So this foster parent, when he would come off of his bus for his daily whatever it was outside of the house, when he would get there, she would take him and strap him to a wooden chair in his room with the lights out, and she'd use leather belts to tie him to this chair. And when he would scream and cry because he's, you know, tied to a chair and scared and doesn't know what the fuck's going on, she'd come in there and beat him on his helmet. Now, I reported her ass and got that home shut down, just like I did with a lot of homes when I got out of foster care. I saw so many things, so many abuses, and you know, and things happening. You know, there was one foster parent that I had who was friends with the foster home inspector. And so when the inspector would come over, she would go as far as the couple of feet to the couch and sit down, and the two ladies would have a cup of tea, and then she would turn around and walk her ass right out the front door without checking anything. In this particular home, it was the worst roach infestation I've ever seen in a house, and there were holes that were 3 feet around, you know, like in the house, and they had bunk beds stacked so close to each other. There's no standing room for more than one person, because these rooms are slap full of bunk beds, stacking kids on top of each other, so this lady can buy that, you know, pay off that Cadillac she had in her driveway faster, and pay off her mortgage, and have something to retire on cushy. And you know, meanwhile, you know, kids there's locks on the refrigerators, locks on the cabinets. You're starving to death, and you know, nobody wants to provide you anything. So, you know, as a child, I went out to a local shopping plaza, and I was out there pushing shopping carts for every business for a week, after putting in an application at every store, just so that I could try to get a job from someone, so that I could be able to have some food and have clothes, because only clothes I had were the clothes on my back. You know, and this is the kind of treatment that these children are getting when they go into foster care, and they get exploited and hurt, and then they end up, you know, being abused and everything in foster care. And then when they come out, you know, all they know is that, and then like the juvenile justice, there's a lot of corruption with the juvenile justice because they specifically target children who have dealt with CPS and children who are in the foster care system. And I can distinctly recall, being in foster care, and the guys who worked at the group home also worked at the juvenile jail. And so these guys would literally recruit children out of the group home to go to the juvenile jail. Like, I don't, was he getting kickbacks? But he did that to me. And, he thought it was funny to be able to see you on both sides of the fence. And, it's disgusting, man. Like, the things that I saw, like, nobody should see, and the things that I've experienced and seen, no one should ever have to deal with. And that's why when I got out of foster care, I started fighting back. But they came at me with such an offensive that it completely stopped me in my tracks of everything I was trying to accomplish. And then I became a dad and started focusing on my babies. But when they started focusing on attacking my babies, I started looking for, how is this all connected? You start putting the pieces of the puzzle together, you start going down the rabbit holes, and you start finding the facts that these people are profiting off of our enslavement. And they've been doing it for hundreds, if not thousands of years. These are the same families over and over again who are in control. And when you have people who have money who are in control, they're going to be looking out for the interests of people with money who are in control, because that's what they are. They're looking out for their own people. So when we have a Congress that's completely made up of rich people, and people who weren't even rich before going into Congress are now rich, they're looking out for the interests of the rich. They're obviously not going to be looking out for the interests of the common folk. Like, I don't know what it's going to take to get everyone to wake up, but you're absolutely right. We have to spread this awareness of the truth. And get as many of these videos of real tangible information out there. But we're going to have to push an advertising campaign, and that's going to take some dough. And you're absolutely right on the fact, the government right now is trying to suppress all of our social media. They've been fighting for legislation in order to stop our ability to have free speech through our online, sources. And they're trying to keep people like me to quiet. They want me silenced. They're fining me in public squares for getting awareness spread. They're shutting down my social media accounts, and they're keeping me from being able to spread the message as much as I would like to be able to, and as much as other dumbed down messages get spread. Like, there are some real serious dumb messages that go absolutely apeshit viral. But when you start bringing some reality in there, there's some sort of algorithm to try and suppress that reality and honesty about the truth in our enslavement. They don't want that to spread. They don't want people to wake up. But what I've noticed, because I travel almost constantly, and I've been all over the United States. And while there are a lot of people who are asleep, if you go out into a public place and there are a lot of people around, and you start telling the truth on a megaphone, some people are going to wake up. And I've been able to wake up a lot of people at one time by going out into a public square in a tourist town on a Saturday. And that is something that's been effective. I've had people come up and hug me and crying, saying that I opened their eyes, that they were, in a bubble, and they didn't realize what was going on, but after hearing me, they were awakened. And so that's why I feel like if we go out into these public squares, we might look like crazies, but so have every single person who's ever had a revolution, who's led a revolution. Every person who's been a party to a revolution was considered a tyrant, or I mean, not a tyrant, but was considered a treasonous, and was considered crazy up until they won. And when they won, they became a hero. And and that's what it's about right now. If there is ever a cause to fight back, it's our children, our grandchildren, the future of our society as a whole, the strength of society for we the people. I mean, do we want these things to happen to our kids? Do we want them to happen to our grandkids? Do we want do we want to live in slavery, or do we want to be the ones who stopped it? That's the real question.
You're
No,
preaching to the choir.
and I go ahead, Charles.
I just say he's preaching to the choir here.
I am.
You know, but we like I said, I mean, if you're out west, if you can make it to Montana, seriously, go up to Columbia Falls, Montana, and meet with Jerry O'Neill. Tell him I sent you, because he needs people campaigning on the ground with him. And as even though Montana is like, you know, population-wise, one of the smallest states, big area, but very small population, to get a non-lawyer on the Supreme Court of the Supreme Court of any state it would be earth-shattering. And he has always fought for, well, I mean, his own personal life. He fought for parental rights, and he won. That was how he got legally educated, was by fighting for his own family. And it's just there are not a lot of people like him who are both have the wherewithal and the patience to go into politics as an outsider and still support the principles of the Constitution. He has no corporate backing. He has no millionaires behind him, and those are the engines that work politically. And it's just it is so aggravating to think that we the people are outside the government that is supposedly created in our name. I think that we've just got to realize what the odds are. And as my friend Sam Dixon in Atlanta, one of the most successful lawyers in Georgia, says, we need a bloody revolution which will make France 1792 and Russia 1917 look like a Sunday picnic. As heads roll and people have to be shot before this system will actually change.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like that's the direction that it could head in if the people in charge do not peacefully surrender the government back into the hands of the people. Because that's really what it comes down to. We need the peaceful surrender. We need constitutional military officers, constitutional police officers, constitutional sheriffs to step on board with a movement to try and stop this tyranny that we're experiencing, this gross deprivation of rights, this child theft and kidnapping, the extortion, the racketeering that's happening. It's going to take strong men who are well armed. We need well armed militias of the people. That's a Second Amendment right. We do not have militias of the people. The militias are all run by the executive branch. The governors control all the militias. That's why we don't have any.
That's supposed to be a job by the sheriff.
Well, and you would think that, but unfortunately, the sheriffs have gatekeepers, and the gatekeepers keep you from being able to access the sheriff who has the ability to arrest the judge. So, it's that blue wall of silence garbage. But if we had well-armed militias of the people who are there to enforce the rights of the people who don't work for the city and for the state and for the county, who are making money and generating slaves and revenue for the state, but well-armed militias of we the people who go and arrest crimes against we the people, if we had that and we eliminate immunity so that no man who commits a crime against another man, regardless of title, of nobility, as the Constitution says, there is none of that. We have to end that. There's no, it really can't be that way anymore. We have to stop it. We can't take immunity anymore.
Now you reminded me of something I forgot to mention. I still don't know how to access the public chat here, but if Chris, if you will either through Brenda or Melissa get me your email, I will send you the brief, the long declaration. It wasn't really a brief, but that I wrote in support of Jerry O'Neill's candidacy in Montana. about the title of nobility and how the bar has become the modern nobility and how it's part of a very ancient pattern of oppression that has existed throughout time. But anyhow,
I couldn't agree more.
I'd like to send you
Hey,
that. So see,
Please do.
I'll
My email address is
send you over his email right now.
yeah. And anybody who wants to send me an email, it's your unlawful acts hurt my babies at Gmail. And you know, I've got a protest nationwide. You know, I'm trying to get a nationwide strike and protest movement going, set for June 1st. You know, pull all your money out of the bank, file federal lawsuits, clog up the courts with our complaints, and stop going to work and stop contributing to any corporations, any banks, and just go out in the streets and protest starting, you know, June 1st and on until, you know, we have some successful change. Because if we're out there in the streets protesting and we go ahead and pull our money out and we start live streaming all of this, we can start building a movement that's big enough. You know, obviously we're going to have to keep putting out good information. And when I go out into the streets, I just speak the truth into a megaphone. So, you know, and you can just do that too. And you know, you go out there and, you know, whether you can make it to DC or not, you can be as far as your front porch, and you can be, you know, or you can go all the way to DC, you know, but the more people do this, the more people are out there shouting in the streets, the more people who are going to want to go out there and shout in the streets, because we don't realize how many people there are who are dealing with this and who have gone through this and who are just being quiet and, you know, have just removed themselves from social media and aren't on, you know, Facebook, and you know, how much of this our information that we try to put out is actually getting to the people who need it, who don't realize, you know, what's going on and who may have already given up. And, you know, but if we go out there and we start building the presence and start, you know, getting our voices heard out there in the streets, you know, we can garnish more and more support. And, you know, the longer we do this and the more numbers that we get, we'll eventually have enough people to be able to do whatever is necessary. If they won't peacefully hand it over, we can go over there and just say, okay, you know, we're going to do this ourselves. And, you know, I would prefer it to not be that way, but it's so entirely corrupted into slavery, and it's completely anti-American. Like, the values of our current government and the leaders of it are the exact opposite of what the founding fathers had in mind. And the reason why we had the Boston Tea Party is it was over taxation. And, you know, here we are being taxed to absolute death and having our children stolen. You know, we need a revolution of that you know, caliber, and that's what it's going to take. But does it have to be violent? I sure hope it isn't. I don't want a single more person to be hurt. But the fact of the matter is they are corrupt. We know they are corrupt, and they know they are corrupt. And so, are they going to, you know, stand down, accepting that we have discovered the truth and we are coming to them with the truth? Because the truth is powerful. And if we come to them with the truth and the truth is powerful, and that, you know, it could lead them to say, okay, well, we value our lives more than we value this position of power. So, you know, it could be a peaceful surrender. And, you know, I want to hope for that. So, but we all know the truth, you know, and our continuing to contribute into the system is only going to make it grow worse and worse and get generationally worse and worse as more and more people get trapped up into these systems of slavery. You can see the statistics, you can see the numbers are growing, you can see the percentages of the population growing and growing, and the demographics growing and growing that are being affected by this. I mean, I'm talking people between, you know, poverty and 6 figures a year, all dealing with the same thing. Their children being stolen and sold. They're, you know, being denied, you know, any or equal access to their children because there is a financial something to gain financially from it. There's so many people dealing with it. We don't even know how many people. They won't ever tell us the real numbers. But what I do know is that child support is a $50 billion industry. $50 billion industry in child support. So how many people do you think it takes to make $50 billion in industry out of child support? I'd say there's a lot of us. So, and if you take those people who are dealing with the child support issue and you add them with the people whose children were stolen through child protective services, and you combine those numbers of people, that's a significant amount of the population. And if you think about it, a lot of these adults who may never have been divorced or had their children, taken by CPS, a lot of these adults had parents who were divorced and who were deprived of a parent because of a divorce. And they later recognized that they were done an injustice. And these are things like everybody was a child, everybody becomes an adult if you live long enough. And these are things that we can all relate to. There are injustices that infect us all. But if you want to take it to that next level and say something that affects us all, just throw the word taxes in there. We're going to abolish taxes because taxes are completely the opposite of what we're supposed to be doing. And the money is all based off of debt anyway. So why are we paying 60% in taxes and letting our children be stolen?
That's a whole another episode. Guys,
Yeah.
Sorry, we could keep on with this one. I'm sure of that. But Charles, any last?
No, I think we've covered a lot. And all I can say is I'll stop on saying support Jerry O'Neill for Supreme Court of Montana.
All right. You got any words?
No. I think anything that could be said was said.
On these topics.
Yep.
Let's see, Chris, right, buddy.
I just hope to be able to keep talking to you guys and keep spreading the good word that we the people can fight back. We have to work together. We have to be strong, but we can fight these injustices for our children's lives. The strike starts on June 1st. I encourage everyone worldwide to join in to try and stop these injustices to children throughout our entire world. Is absolutely disgusting what these people are doing, and hopefully these efforts, along with all the efforts of everyone else, because we're all doing our own parts to be able to try and stop this. I just wish that for all of us, that all of our efforts and all the things that we're doing, that it's enough that we can stop these injustices to children.
Oh man, that's awesome. You do. You're great, Herbert. Herbert.
Yes, I have a question for Charles. Charles, what's the name of that person up in Montana again?
Jerry Bryant O'Neill. Jerry Bryant. You just look. Jerry Bryant O'Neill, Columbia Falls, Montana. And he's one of my heroes. He's my biggest heroes. And he is a great American patriot. I just can't and I'll try to get him on this show. I don't know if I'll succeed or not. But,
okay, my other question is, where can I watch Civil War?
Any theater near you. If you live in New York City, there must be a thousand.
No, I'm in Arizona.
He's in Arizona.
Oh, I thought. Oh well, any
no,
theater.
I retired from New York.
It's in general release now. It's in general release now. So just look up Civil War with Kirsten Dunst, and it's being reviewed everywhere. It's being talked about. I snuck away and saw it. I usually see things on opening night, but basically because of this show, I didn't get to see it until today.
Okay. The other question I have is it to the gentleman that was speaking. What is this constitutes what they call the deep state?
I'll answer that obviously.
No, the young man that was talking. I'm asking him, does this constitute what they call the deep state?
He seems to be gone, but I'm sure he would agree it does.
Okay. Hey, that's it, Darren.
All right. Thank you all. We learned a lot tonight. We'll get you all tomorrow. Chris will definitely be in touch with you. No doubt. Yeah, Chris, so much. You, Chris. Yeah, well, you don't remember. Hey, look, that was a lot of information. That you look at this show again. That we all need to pay attention to. This is all need to get to important thing. If I can't and preach more than anything, it's how important it is for all of us to come together as a group and show them in solidarity us together, because there's way more of us than there is them. I'm the CPS Punisher. I'm out of here. Like and subscribe, please. Pass this along to your friends. Share. Do everything that we can. Like and subscribe. Have a good night, guys.